Alrighty folks, welcome back. It's time to play more of the last case of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I don't actually know what the second game is called. Well, I guess the two games together. So the first one is the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Gotcha. Anyway. I have not paid nearly enough attention to the details of, well, the title of the games. So let's recap where we left off. So in this case, we are defending Gina Lestrade, who was found in a locked room holding a gun. Pop Windebank here is the victim. This guy is almost certainly the killer, but so far he hasn't turned up in the case yet. And these two robbers are the current key witnesses. Which means their testimonies are already kind of suspect. However, despite that, we are on to our second summation examination. Susato went back to Japan because her father is ill. Welcome to the stream, Lastborn. Thank you for the hydrate. Iris is kind of acting as our judicial assistant right now. And Herlock Sholmes hasn't shown up yet because he got shot in the last case. Let's see, what else? We have the pawnbroker's ticket bot. We have the pawnbroker's ticket for a box that is relevant to the case. We have the pawnbroker's ticket for a coat, which is kind of what started the whole case. And this is kind of the center of our defense right now. We have these blood samples. So by pairing up different blood samples, we can identify, well, by analyzing different blood, we can identify two different samples from the same person, so that if we know what one sample comes from, we know what the other one comes from. For example, the blood on that one ticket is from Thrice Fired Mason, the guy who was killed in episode 3. And the blood on this disc matches some other blood at the crime scene. And the blood on the disc comes from this guy. And that's probably going to be the key to this summation examination, because we left off last time having been unable to establish that there were more shots than what's being considered fired here tonight. Fired there that night. Yeah, the name is probably fake. And yes, he is probably guilty. We have notes from the McGilded case that were prepared by Miss Susato. We have today's paper. I can't remember what this detail talks about this. Oh yeah, there are government secrets being leaked. And that's probably relevant to something going on. But we haven't found out why. Got the autopsy report, crime scene photograph. Oh, welcome to the stream, Bruce. This is the layout. And so far we have two guns in evidence. Mr. Windebank's gun, which shows signs of a single discharge and only had one bullet in it. The Skulkin Brothers gun, which shows signs of a single discharge and had all its bullets in it. And this is interesting. Now, first of all, I'm pretty sure this photo was centered for the American version of this. I'm guessing that in the original Japanese version, Gina was actually pointing this at Mr. Windibank, because she was trying to coerce him to let her into the back room so she could look at some stuff. Half an hour later, we have this picture. We have a stereoscope to view pictures in 3 dimensions, and we have the music box disc, which we've established has the blood of Mr. Eggs Benedict on it. And that's about where we are. Let's pick up with this summation examination. Oh, also I'll introduce you to the jurors. This guy was married to the woman responsible for the death in the, for the stabbing in the last case we tried. This girl was a juror in the first case we tried. This guy is the only new juror, is the only new face, I think, but he's obsessed with stereoscopes for some reason. This guy was a juror in the last case we tried. This lady was a juror in one of the 2 previous cases that we tried. And this guy is a Russian terrorist. I really don't know how they decided to call him. Also, he's been very mean to that mouse here. Anyway, I'm actually going to load that save so that we can pick up from there. Anyway, the odds of this set of jurors happening by accident are kind of insane, but we're going to ignore it. And yes, we need justice for the mouse. It's the real victim here. Once a rogue, always a once a rogue. Once a rogue, always a rogue, I say. Hey? Different breed to us law-abiding citizens. Hang on. Once a rogue, always a rogue, I say. Different breed to us law-abiding citizens. As only 2 bullets were found at the scene, I would say the whole case is done and dusted. You don't need a stereoscope to see the truth here. Every which way you look at it, it was that pickpocket. I never imagined that simple operation would cause me such grief. Oh yeah, this guy probably left his scalpel inside someone he was operating on. Yeah, no, we're really in this for the mouse. Like, so far, Gina Lestrade is my favorite character in this game. But, the mouse is the one that we really need to save here. I never imagined that simple operation would cause me such grief. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to get my voices right today. Give me some time, I'll warm up. The accused attempted a theft on the previous day. I can see I'm in for a busy day ahead. I am ballistics expert. I have seen many shootings. There is nothing I do not know about guns. So as a general rule, what we've been doing is pressing... I have to admit, I was rather bowled over by the argument put forward by the chap in black. When that fell apart like a house of cards, I saw that I'd jolly well been hoodwinked. Well, no more. The whole courtroom is turning against me. It's not fair, Iris. That prosecutor's being mean. Just because Ginny's done some things she shouldn't have done in the past, that doesn't make her a murderer. Allow me to savor this fruity vintage while I savor the spectacle of your fruitless debate on the matter. Here's to the truth coming out, eventually. I couldn't agree more.
That's enough preamble. Council, proceed with the summation examination.
Yes, my lord. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is press on the ones that seem kind of irrelevant to get more of an opinion out. Only 2 bullets were found at the scene. Don't need a stereoscope to see the truth here. So first of all, I think we'll press on this. So if I've understood correctly, you need 2 pictures, a left eye one and a slightly different right eye one. Exactly. Then you can see the scene in 3 dimensions, like this. So if we have 2 bullets, I don't suppose you can see anything useful with them? I think you'll find that no matter how you squint, the truth of the situation always looks the same here. The only person who could have shot the victim is that girl in the dock. How can you be so sure of that? Think about it. The Skulkin brothers shot the great detective, didn't they? Yes, that's been mentioned once or twice. Well then, surely it's coming into focus now, isn't it? Okay, so that's not progressing. This one next. Will you please stop muttering about things that have nothing to do with this trial, sir? The defendant's life is on the line here.
Well, the thing is, I couldn't really say that it has nothing to do with the trial, to be honest.
Huh?
I mean, there's no question that the man was shot, but the bullet had simply vanished from his stomach. It's quite inexplicable, don't you think?
What? I almost don't want to ask, but this surgery you've been muttering about all this time, you were operating on...
What was the fellow's name now? Herlick? No, Herlock? No, Herlock?
Herlock Sholmes, by any chance? Well, welcome to the stream, B. One sec. I'm just gonna try and get more cool air going in here because this room is heating up weirdly fast. And I thank you for the stand, B. Yeah, I suppose it's good to get some extra standing in.
Yes, good lord. It was that Herlock fellow.
What? You're the surgeon that operated on Mr. Sholmes.
That's right, using the very latest anesthesia techniques, I might add. It was a fairly major op, I can tell you.
This is crazy.
Let me see, the fellow was brought in not long after midnight, if I remember correctly. They said he'd been shot by some criminal or other, so I opened him up like a shot. But the funny thing is, I went over his insides with a fine-tooth comb, but I couldn't find the bullet anywhere. So I'm afraid I had to throw up my hands and just stitch the fellow back up.
I hate to state the obvious, but...
Yes?
Surely that's because the bullet is still at the scene of the shooting.
The counsel for the defense is correct. As is clearly shown in this photographic print, The bullet that the Skulkin brothers fired at Mr. Sholmes hit him in the stomach region, then exited his body and lodged into the shop wall, where the calendar was hanging by the door.
I think you'll find it's really quite simple if you just consider the problem three-dimensionally.
Who do you think I am, son?
Well, juror number 4 is about the best I can do.
As soon as I saw the wound to the man's stomach, I flipped him over.
Like a pancake? Are you saying that you checked his back?
Of course I did, and there wasn't a trace of injury. No sign that the bullet had left the body at all.
What?
That's the point. The only logical conclusion was that the bullet was still somewhere in the man's innards, which is exactly why I set about slicing him up. And I'm still none the wiser even now. How many times do I have to say it? Can somebody please explain how it happened? Can somebody please solve the mystery?
It's almost as much of a mystery as how this jury was put together. So we're making progress. Oh, well, I guess we have 2 people to pit now. I guess I'll save first, though. I love how this guy just constantly comes up with relevant information.
Objection!
These 2 statements clearly contradict the idea that all I do is pit jurors against each other.
A ballistics expert. Pitting. P-I-T-T.
On the night in question, Mr. Sholmes was shot by one of the Skulkin brothers. But since there was no sign of an exit wound on his back, we must assume that the bullet didn't pass through him. However, no bullet was found lodged in Mr. Sholmes' body either. Furthermore, a bullet was found lodged in the wall of the shop where Mr. Sholmes was shot. Jury number 6.
Hello, my name is Villain. Pleased to meet you.
This apparent contradiction in the facts that is so clearly troubling juror number 4. Are you able to explain the mystery?
I have seen very similar situation in Motherland. It was night. There was blizzard. I was running away along mountain road in freezing cold. Holy! The snow was piling high on both sides of the road. It was very narrow and dangerous. I had to use the body of my comrade to sled down the hill. He was still alive when we started, not by the end though. My pursuers had hunting rifles and they were on dog sleds.
Mental note, don't ask too many questions.
I was shot from behind and I fell down in snow. And this situation was very similar to what I hear today from doctor. They could not find bullet in my body, and no sign of, how you say, exit wound. Then where did the bullet go? Bullet never hit me. Well, if it never hit you, why did you fall down? Bullet hit frozen wall of ice very close to my side.
What?
One small piece, very sharp, broke away from lump of ice and pierced my body. It made deeper wound that looks just like bullet wound. Good gracious. Of course, piece of ice quickly melted inside me. And that is solution to mystery of disappearing bullet.
Okay, that was less helpful than I thought.
But that doesn't answer the question at all. The shooting happened in a pawnbroker's shop, not some snowy mountain road in another country.
Just an idea, but we might not be looking at exactly the same scenario here. Bruno, where exactly was Hurley shot again? Well, according to the report, in his stomach. Sort of around this area, I think. Well, that's precisely where he always wears a little pouch on his belt. pouch? Actually, I might have noticed something like that. Yes, a pouch. It's where he keeps 3 glass vials of very dangerous chemicals that he uses in his investigations. What? Really? Doctor, where's the pouch Mr. Sholmes was wearing?
Well, the fellow had nothing like that on his person when he arrived at the hospital, as far as I can remember.
If I may, Lord Van Zieks. While I realize it is forbidden for the prosecution to interject during a summation examination, I should inform the defense that I have the pouch in question in the antechamber outside the courtroom. Sorry? As I understand it, when the police arrived on the scene and found Mr. Sholmes injured, they removed from the pouch in order to assess the wound.
Ah, thank goodness. I thought I was getting forgetful for a moment. Well,
Since then, it has been in my safekeeping, along with all other evidence relating to the case. I can personally vouch for the fact that it has not been touched since the incident occurred.
very well. While extremely unconventional during a summation examination, I must demand the prosecution present the item in question with all speed. Bring forth Mr. Herlock Sholmes's pouch. I see. So this is the pouch worn by Mr. Sholmes on the night in question, is it?
Look at that. One of the files is broken, and the leather around it is scorched black. It's almost as if the file exploded.
Exploded?
So, that night, the bullet from the Skulkin brothers' gun struck Mr. Sholmes's pouch.
And it was the glass file exploding that caused the fellow's injury.
His bullet did not penetrate victim, but was deflected into wall of shot. A delightfully complex aroma.
Well, it would appear one mystery has been solved at least.
Though it has no bearing on the truth of this case. Thank you for the hydrate, lastborn. Let's see if I can manage to drink water without knocking it over. The bungling and burgling brothers shot the detective, and the accused shot the pawnbroker. The pertinent facts of the case remain unaltered.
Well, at least the mystery is solved. I can sleep easy tonight. Thank you, young man.
Thank you very much. Glad I could help.
Due to its bearing on the conundrum just solved, the court will sequester the scruffy pouch as evidence.
Hurley's pouch isn't scruffy. Sholmes's pouch. Okay, now we're making progress.
Now, the summation examination. It would appear the defense is somewhat struggling to alter opinion,
Please, my lord, a little more time. After all, that's a new piece of evidence. It could be a valuable clue, and you can't afford to overlook anything here, Ryu. There's still a way to turn this around somehow, I'm sure of it. Alright, let's take a look. There's the bullet. These glass vials are full of Hurley's homemade potions. Homemade? Yes, like fingerprint powder to show where people have touched things, and a scent amplifying solution to intensify a smell lingering on an object. That's amazing. They're all very easy to use. There's just one thing that you have to be careful of. They're all very flammable. Mr. Sholmes is a walking bomb. Either he's passionate about finding out the truth, or just oblivious to the dangers. Oh look, there's a hole here at the back. Doesn't look much like a bullet hole, but clearly something's ripped through the leather with great force. Something must have pierced it somehow to have left this hole behind. Yes, it looks that way. Mr. Sholmes and his pouch both took a beating, didn't they? It's really scorched badly just here. Oh, the strap is broken, look. This must be where the bullet hit then. Let me see. And there... Oh, I'm gonna examine this part first. This file has been smashed to pieces. Presumably, this is where the bullet struck. As soon as the bullet hit the chemical in that file, there would have been a really big explosion. Big explosion? Well, Hurley's potions and chemicals are amazingly useful for the investigation work he does. But they're also quite tricky to handle. Safely, at least. They're very dangerous. Oh. I'm sure that when this file broke, the chemical inside would have ignited. Note to self, always walk on the right-hand side of Sholmes in the future. The left is the danger zone. And now for the most important aspect of this particular piece of evidence. What the... Iris, look! Behind where the broken file was. Did you see it? That's... the Skulkin brothers' bullet! What a stroke of luck that it hit his pouch. This is an amazing discovery. What this means is there were 3 bullets fired at Windibanks that night. We've found exactly what that juror was talking about. The 3rd bullet. It's time to press that juror again, I think. I don't think I've pressed that juror a first time. Projectile was discovered, lodged in Mr. Sholmes' pouch, caused one of the files to explode, injuring Mr. Sholmes. Wait. Oh, the bullet is there separately. The bullet was fired from the Skulkin brothers' gun on the night of the incident. So it turns out it never actually entered Hurley's body at all. Thanks to the thick leather of that pouch he was wearing, it saved him. Hurley's always lucky like that. I mean, it also hit an exploding chemical. Considering what he had to go through in the hospital, I wonder how lucky he really was. Oh dear, poor Hurley. Yeah, I think it's all just one examination thing.
Hold it!
It's the number of bullets that has you convinced? Only 2 bullets were fired, and the 2 guns that fired them have been examined by the police. When the parlor maid asks me how many are invited for dinner, I always tell her to count the table settings. Well, that's logical, I suppose. Although, yes, sometimes after dining, crockery does go missing. 1 or 2 guests rather like the fine china. Does your employer dine with thieves? So I suppose, if there was another bullet somewhere of which we were unaware, I'd have to reconsider my position. 3rd bullet somewhere on the scene. There is a 3rd bullet. Allow me to show you then the 3rd bullet.
Take that!
Here it is. We discovered it just now. Yes, on the night in question in Windibank's pawnbrokery, another bullet was fired. What is this new trickery, you Nipponese conjurer? Where did you find that bullet? It was lodged inside Mr. Sholmes' pouch. What? This pouch was removed from around Mr. Sholmes' waist before he was taken to the hospital, and since then it has been touched by no one.
Do you mean to say the shot fired by the Skulkin brothers that night?
Yes, as your lordship has surmised, it hit this pouch.
But that makes no sense whatsoever. We already know the whereabouts of the bullet fired at Mr. Sholmes. It's clearly visible in this photographic print.
Ah! 2 guns from the scene have already been submitted into the court record as evidence.
Yes, that of Mr. Windibank and that belonging to the Skulkin brothers.
And examination of both guns revealed that only a single bullet had been fired from each. Oh, but that must mean... That's right. We now know that on the night in question, 3 bullets were fired. However, only 2 bullets were fired from the guns recovered from the crime scene. And until that incontrovertible inconsistency is somehow explained, we cannot and must not pass judgment. See, this is what happens when you don't thoroughly examine your evidence, Lord Van Zeeks.
Order. While this summation examination remains incomplete, the court has been presented with new facts. Facts that would appear to shake the very foundations upon which the case against the defendant has been built. As is my prerogative in this situation, I hereby temporarily suspend the summation examination. By Jupiter.
What?
Bailiff, bring the witness back to the stand at once.
Dang. So with the scales still fully tilted... I love how... Gregson... I love how Gregson is just there as well, because obviously those two are in police custody. He's there to make sure they don't slip away.
Witnesses.
Governor?
Were you listening to the proceedings whilst the defence carried out the summation examination?
We was, Governor. Perhaps we can dispense with the tedious preamble. Simply answer this one question. A 3rd bullet has been identified at the scene of the crime. What do you make of that? Make of it, Gov? I don't make nothing of it. If I can help it, Is it one of yours? Go blimey, Gov. Go blimey, not a chance. In that case, did you have an accomplice? What? What? Never. The Skulkin brothers work alone. It's just the 2 of us. That's our trademark. How soon we forget poor Sulky. Only 2 of the bullets from the crime scene originated from firearms we have in evidence. The 3rd bullet was fired from another gun. Where is it?
Damn it, that's an head scratcher. Counsel for the defense.
Yes?
I should like to hear your thoughts regarding these new developments. The 3rd bullet and the mysterious missing firearm from whence it came.
Thinking back over all the testimony we've heard and all the evidence we've seen, I think I'm starting to form a picture of what really happened that night. My lord, I think it's clear what this 3rd bullet tells us about the Skulkin brothers. I believe it's that they had an accomplice. It's either they had a secret accomplice or it's nothing to do with them. On that night at Windibank's pawnbrokery, the brothers must have been working with a 3rd man. The witnesses are clearly doing their best to cover up the existence of this accomplice. The evidence all points to the fact that there was someone else present, someone carrying a gun.
Objection!
An accomplice, you say? Pigsville. These protracted proceedings have already forced us to endure 2 summation examinations. Yet in all that time, there has not been a murmur of a 3rd man. If this apparent wraith-like being exists, the court must be shown hard evidence. Without it, this The prosecution demands answers on 2 counts. Firstly, proof, evidence that this accomplice was ever at the scene of the crime. And secondly, the identity of this spurious character. Skulkins are lying, I know that. But how can I ascertain the identity of the person they're hiding?
Well, Counsel,
I'm supposed to prove the existence of this accomplice and reveal the person's identity. In response to the prosecution's demands, my lord, the defense is... I think I have to say ready to present answers, but there's always... In these games, there's sometimes a sneaky one. The defense is ready. I believe I can provide all the answers the prosecution demands. So, my Nipponese friend, despite the swimming eyes, you seem to think you have something to say. This promises to be interesting. Thank you for the hydrate, Lastborn. I have to push forward now, there's no other option. I need to use every single piece of evidence available to me if it will make a difference.
in that case, Counsel, I would ask you to present the evidence without delay. On the night in question, in the moments leading up to the death of the victim, what proof have you that there was a third intruder present at the scene?
Take that!
The evidence is right here in this portfolio.
By Jove, that portfolio again, is it?
Do you expect the court to rifle through your papers? Your papers itself? Be more specific. You claim one of those blood samples proves the presence of this third intruder. Well, which one is it? It's this one. It's number 1.
Take that!
What am I looking at here? There appears to be some green paint or such like around the bullet hole in the middle of the calendar.
That's a bloodstain, my lord.
A bloodstain?
Green blood. Curious even for you. Is the court to understand that the intruder was some unhuman creature? It's something developed by Mr. Herlock Sholmes. By the great detective? New invention. Stop. Not yet appeared in stories. Stop. It's this, you see. It doesn't have a name yet, though. This fogger sprays a chemical that reacts with the different elements in people's blood to change its color.
Different elements of people's blood?
Yes, everyone's blood is slightly different, you see, because it's made up of different elements. So by seeing what color it changes to, you can tell in a flash whose blood it is. Oh, that brings a whole extra dimension to looking at blood. Talk of blood in the courtroom, stop. Very exciting, stop. As an example, this one shows the blood of the victim, Mr. Windibank.
Ah, a striking blue.
Yes, so you see, the green color of this blood stain on the calendar shows that somebody else was shot in the main part of the shop.
Now hold there, young man. Could be from some unrelated incident, couldn't it?
No, it's not unrelated. The date showing on the calendar is the date on which Mr. Windibank was killed.
By golly. By golly.
Therefore, we can assume that whoever was shot on the same day.
And whose blood is it?
Well, the Skulkin brothers in the stand don't appear to be suffering from any gunshot injuries. Which means it must be the blood of somebody else, the third intruder.
Objection!
Whose identity the court is still waiting to hear. You can't delay this any longer, my learned friend. Who is this alleged third intruder? Like, I can't be wrong here. I'm sure I'm right, but let's save anyway. The man's name is Eggert Benedict.
Eggert Benedict? Who on earth are you talking about, Counsel?
He paid a visit to Windibank's pawnbrokery on the afternoon before the incident took place. When the accused attempted to deceive the pawnbroker into releasing this article into her possession. That's right. The man identified by the defense, Mr. Eggert Benedict, then attempted to take the article from the defendant by force.
Broker. Yes, sir. I believe this filthy pickpocket thief has just redeemed an article from you now. Yes, the article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned at once.
Now that's a lie. What are you trying to pull?
Give me back my overcoat, you wastrel. And needless to say, any music box discs too.
Inspector Gregson was there at the time and can attest to what happened. In the end, it was the inspector himself who took the disc.
Can you corroborate this account, Inspector?
Yes, my lord. That's more or less what happened. And in the interest of being thorough, I asked Windibank for a print showing the fellow.
Taken from one of his red-handed recorder gubbinses.
Yes, that's him talking to Mr. Windibank that morning.
And you claim this man is the brother's accomplice.
Well, Mr. and Mr. Skulkin? Never seen the geezer before in my life. On my life, Gov, on my life, never seen him. Of course, I'm legally blind, what with these dark circles round my eyes and whatnot. You'd think they're a mask or just some sort of paint or whatever, but no, it's a horrible genetic condition. It's eating my eyes from the outside in. Someday they'll fall out. They may do so in this courtroom here.
Well, somewhat unsurprisingly, it appears our witnesses disagree with the assertion.
I'm sure your lordship recalls my learned Nipponese friend's actual assertion, which was that he could prove the identity of the alleged accomplice. Yes, and I can. Then show us the evidence. I agree. We must see proof that the clean-cut gentleman in the photograph is the filthy criminal you say he is. This is the last piece of evidence. I've had a feeling that something has been missing in this trial from the very start, but now I'm going to drag it kicking and screaming into the courtroom.
Are you ready to present your answer to the court, then, counsel?
Yes, my lord. The defense will present the evidence now. Proof that the man pictured in this photographic print was in fact the person struck by the third bullet.
Take that!
As I mentioned before, on the afternoon of the day in question, the defendant attempted, deceitfully admittedly, to reclaim this disc from Windibank's.
Which is when the aforementioned Eggert Benedict appeared on the scene, I believe. This man then attempted to purloin the article from the defendant's possession, no?
That's correct, my lord. I myself was present at the time. It was following this that a minor incident occurred.
Well, of course, sir. Here is the disc for you. Very, very well. Then I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to style.
Wait a minute, that disc is mine.
What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing, you little tramp? You've drawn blood, you filthy animal.
Being a music box disc, it has countless small but sharp metal protrusions over its surface. These protrusions cause Mr. Benedict's finger to bleed, and the resulting smear of blood is still visible on the disc now.
Goodness, a blood stain, is it?
My assistant and I have just analyzed the blood stain here in this very courtroom, using my trusty fogger gun. Yes, and we added the results to this portfolio.
I say.
It's green. It's exactly the same color as the blood around the calendar. The evidence is conclusive. The man calling himself Mr. Egbert Benedict, who was in Windibanks earlier in the day, is the accomplice who was present at the scene of the crime that same night. Unfortunately, we can't actually prove that he was an accomplice, but we can prove that he was there that night, and the rest will follow from that. My lord, it is the opinion of the defense that Mr. Egbert Benedict should be summoned to the courtroom to testify.
It would certainly seem that we can ill afford to ignore this gentleman's apparent presence.
Objection!
This has gone on long enough now, this flagrant ignorance of the mechanics of law. Sherlock Holmes, you say? Yes, I've heard the name. The protagonist in the series of short stories for the vulgar classes, a god of detection or some such. And now you employ chemical substances devised by this fantastical persona in the highest court in the land. Do you expect us to take you seriously? The samples made by this plaything are not fit to be called evidence. So the bloodstain turned a shade of green. What of it? Here's to you successfully proving that no other blood in the world would turn the same color. Ah, well. And pray, do not even think of suggesting that we should take Mr. Jones's word for it. Ah. Is he right? Is Mr. Sholmes' concoction a load of rubbish? I don't know. I mean, he is a great detective. What are you talking about? We can't let him get away with that. I knew it would come to this. Of course, Mr. Sholmes' invention isn't going to be recognized by any official body. But what other choice did I have? I'm just remembering what Father Christmas over there said before. About how he was temporarily suspending the summation examination. Ah. In other words, the examination isn't over yet, is it?
Good grief, what did you just say, young girl?
And in a summation examination, the decision as to whether or not the trial continues is in the hands of the 6 jurors, isn't it? So the way I see it, it doesn't matter what certain other people think of Hurley's invention. At least, not for now. Yes, she's right.
Young lady, you have quite the devious mind.
It really just comes down to one thing. Whether these ladies and gentlemen of the jury are convinced by what you say, Runa. Is that about right, would you say? Or did I misunderstand something? Unbelievable. Mr. Sholmes' partner is a force to be reckoned with. Iris Wilson, sharpshooter. Oh, Iris, please don't shoot anyone in this courtroom.
After that shrewd preface of the situation from an entirely unexpected source, it must be acknowledged that the previous summation examination has yet to reach its conclusion. This is absurd. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court now looks to you for your final leanings in the matter. As proud citizens of Her Majesty's Britain, I'm sure you will come to fair and just conclusions. So then, state your final decisions in turn, please.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Not guilty.
I wonder why they decided to have certain people... Like, I wonder why those two jurors were the ones to say guilty.
2 call guilty, and 4 call not guilty.
I imagine that if we were talking about, like, a more real courtroom situation, the jurors would have taken a moment, discussed amongst themselves, decided that the trial should continue, and assigned a couple of people to call guilty while the rest called not guilty in order to more fully examine the evidence. Who wants realism? No, I don't necessarily even care so much about the realism as the reasoning. Why were those two the ones who chose to call guilty?
Such is the outcome of the summation examination.
Objection.
My lord, with all due respect, this is an outrage. The prosecution refuses to accept this decision. On what grounds? If these jurors are persuaded by some half-baked concoction devised by a pretender to real police work, then they are too ignorant to be trusted with the judgment of anyone's guilt. I'm sorry, Lord Van Zeeks, but the outcome of the summation examination cannot be ignored. This trial will continue. Nevertheless, we find ourselves in a rather awkward situation. The defense has very reasonably requested the subpoena of a new witness. But sadly, I fear that will be impossible.
What?
The name of the gentleman gave for himself, Eggert Benedict, is quite clearly false.
I don't believe it. Just when I'd managed to prove the man was there that night. Could I say something?
Who was that, please? Who spoke?
It was me, my lord. Juror number 5.
What have you to say, madam?
If possible, Inspector.
Me, ma'am?
I wonder if you might show the photographic print to me again. The one in which the gentleman is shown. Come to think of it, that hasn't been added to the court record yet, has it?
Ah, right, yes. This one, you mean, of Mr. Benedict?
Yes. There's no doubt in my mind. Juror number 5, you don't mean to say you know this man? Yes, I know him. What?
No. Good gracious. Order. Juror number 5, how on earth?
I am a communications officer. Stop. As we can clearly see. The gentleman in the photograph is... Stop. Also a communications officer. Stop. He works in my office. Stop. Okay, so that explains the newspaper. The person leaking government secrets is obviously this dude. A very talented operator, in fact. Stop. He should be in the communication station now. Stop. Tapping away on the telegraph. Stop. This doesn't seem right somehow. I can't put my finger on why, but it doesn't feel right. Suppose we all imagined the accomplice would be some sort of hardened criminal. It's a bit unexpected to find out that he has a respectable job by day, whatever he gets up to at night. Yes, I suppose that's it. I suppose that's why I felt something was wrong.
If the gentleman is at London's communication station, we should be able to subpoena him within the hour. Lord Van Zeeks, if you please. Yes, my lord. My lord. Make the necessary arrangements with all haste, as your lordship bids. The court will recess for 1 hour. When the new witness arrives, we shall reconvene to hear the gentleman's testimony. Inspector Gregson. Yes, my lord. I should like to hear from you specifically about the events at the pawnbrokery on the day in question. Come to my chambers during the recess. Yes, sir, my lord. Very well. Court is adjourned until 1:40 p.m.
To be continued. Let's keep rolling. About an hour to get. I'm gonna sit down now. About an hour to get from that summation examination to the end of the first half of the trial. Hang on, I lowered it too much. I should really mess around with this and adjust the preset heights so that I can just hit a single button to adjust it. April 17th, 12:41 p.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Ah, Gina, how are you holding up? I'm starting to feel quite warmly towards her frequent cold shoulders now. Ginny, are you alright? Why aren't you saying anything? What's the point, eh? Why go to all this trouble and fight so hard for the likes of me? What? You saw it, that picture? What picture? Ah, you mean this? The photograph taken by Hurley's red-handed recorder. Well, I didn't think it would have captured a scene like this, that's for sure. It's hopeless. Anyone who sees that is going to think I did it, ain't they? Well, I won't pretend it wasn't a bit of a shock when the prosecution first presented it to the court. Surely you've got out of your doubts about me now. You can't still think I'm innocent. Of course I can. Ginny, why don't you talk to us? Tell us what really happened that night. Bruno's cleverly managed to piece together a lot of new information, but still, we'd really like to hear it from you. Alright then. It was after we'd had that dinner together at your place, right, Iris? And we'd all had a chat up in your office, didn't we? Yes, I remember. After that, I just couldn't get to sleep. So I slipped out and went down to the street to the 2-to-1, to Winterbank's place. I don't know if Iris's story was there or not. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I don't know what it's about or nothing, but if you ask me, there's something in it that Sholmes don't like. Something what you don't want people reading. So that's why I lied to Iris about sticking it in lug with Winterbank for safekeeping. At least that's what I thought at the time. So you broke into Winterbank's. I just had to know if it was there or not. I mean, I had no idea that all that was going to kick off, did I? I struck the lock and snuck inside. It was dark like you. It was dark as you like in there. So I gave the oil lamp on the counter a bit of a wick, and that's when...
What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing?
I nearly died, I did. The next thing I knew... I grabbed the gun off the counter and was waving it in the air like I don't know what.
Are you the girl who was in here this afternoon? I didn't think pickpockets went in for armed robbery.
The mantle script. Have you got it here? Did Shons leave a load of papers with you? A story?
I beg your pardon?
Bound to the something or other. If it's here, I want to see it.
I'm sorry, young lady. I'd sooner die than relinquish an article belonging to one of my customers.
Welcome to the stream, Rafkin. I don't want it. What would I do with it anyways? I just want to see it's here, that's all.
Oh, you want to see it, do you?
I want to know if Sholmes really pawned it here or not. Please, just let me see it and I'll go.
Oh, very well then. But for pity's sake, stop waving my gun around, would you?
So then the old cove unlocked the storeroom, and we both went inside. And it was there, alright, the mantle script. Sholmes weren't lying after all. You did all that just to check for me, Jenny? Anyway, there was a bit of kick-up out in the main bit of the shop. The Skulkin brothers arriving on the scene, yes? What was that noise? Someone's breaking in.
Dear me, is there some burglars convention in here tonight I don't know about?
I think I forgot to shut the door behind me. Sorry.
I'd better go and take care of it. Could I possibly have my gun back?
Oh, well, I'll come with you and...
Now don't be foolish, young girl. You must stay right here. Don't leave this room under any circumstances.
And with that look, he took the gun out my hands and walked back out into the shop. I hung back in the storeroom, like he said, straining my ears in the dark to hear what was going on. It sounded like they got a bit of a scrap. I started to think I should help, see? So I was just about to go out to the storeroom myself when... I had a couple of shots go off. 2, I think. Almost at the same time. And then there he was, right at my feet, lying face down on the floor. I was right next to the storeroom door, so I slammed it shut and locked it as quick as you like. Because you thought whoever had shot Mr. Winterbank might come for you? Yeah, so I went to grab the old cove's gun. I figured I'd put up a fight at least. But when I got a better look at him, I knew. Winterbank was a goner. It felt funny in me. I felt funny in my head all of a sudden, kind of dizzy. And after that, I don't remember nothing. She picked up the gun and she passed out upon realizing that she was dead. That he was dead. Pretty natural reaction, honestly. It must be when you passed out, Gina. If I'd have done what I'd done, the old cove might still be. If I hadn't done what I'd done, the old cove might still be alive. Did you tell the police everything you just told us? Of course I did, but they didn't believe a word of it, did they? All they said was if I kept telling lies, I'd make things even worse for me. You'll be alright, Jimmy, don't worry. Just stay strong a little longer. Runa was about to put the real culprit through the mill. That cove what was there in the afternoon? That Eggert Benedict? I still remember how he looked at me, like I was nothing. He was there that night. We don't know his real name yet, but I'm convinced that he's involved somehow. Anyway, thank you for telling us what happened, Gina. I appreciate your honesty. You what? You can leave it all in Runo's capable hands now, Ginny. You'd think by now he would have learned to request a copy of his accused's statement to the police. Hang on, I think I've gotten a tad blurry. Yeah, I have. Mr. Naruto? Yes? How come you trust me? I don't get it. I mean, have you forgotten what happened here before? Come on, it was only 2 months ago. Me and McGilded, we told you a whole pack of lies. And you got the bug trot off with him, even though he was a killer. No, I could never forget that. Oh. I did what I thought was best at the time. The pain of that error of judgment doesn't get any easier to bear. Still, don't forget that I also made you a promise. I told you that I'd be on your side to the bitter end, no matter what. But what if I'm lying? You could be working to get another killer off the hook for all you know. I was once in your position, Gina. I was the accused in a trial. You what? Before I left Japan, I was accused of murder. And strange as it might sound, the circumstances of the crime were pretty damning. I was sure that no one would believe it wasn't me who'd done it. Runo. There was one person who stood up for me, who believed in me and was prepared to defend me. My best friend. Kazuma... Ryunosuke, no one believes in you more than I do. Leave this to me. All you need to do is put your faith in me, and I'll do the rest. I was so happy I cried. But even then, somewhere inside me, I couldn't help thinking, surely he doesn't really believe in me. Not completely. But I was wrong. As soon as my trial began, it was obvious that he had an absolute unwavering belief in me. And in turn, I developed an absolute unwavering belief in him. Since then, I came to realize, if you want someone to believe in you, you have to believe in the other person first. What are you saying? I promise you, Gina, that no matter what happens, I'll keep believing in you. So you don't need to worry. I won't let you down. Even though I'm a diver, and no good liar. You're not like McGilded. I know that. Eh? That's right. You're our friend, Ginny. Iris. We know you better than you think. And we've come to the conclusion that you're someone we can trust. Yes. It's really all we need to know. Exactly. Mr. Naruto, I'm not gonna say a line because I don't really think I can figure it out. At least we actually got her summary of the events. Defendant Gina Lestrade and a legal representative. Court proceedings are about to resume. Please head into the courtroom immediately. Yes, of course. Thank you. I'd been both a defendant and a defending lawyer in my time, so I knew only too well just how hard it was to put all your faith in another. And I also knew just how hard it was to bear the burden of another putting all their faith in you. This is it at last, the final chapter, the final battle. Wish me luck, Susato-san, and I hope you're watching over me too, partner. 17th April, 1:41 p.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. Interesting, so the other two are still here.
I hereby call this court to order as we resume the trial of Miss Gina Lestrade. Lord Van Zieks, have you successfully subpoenaed the witness?
The subpoena was delivered to the communication station where the man works immediately, my lord. However, the heavy rain has delayed the arrival of his carriage, it would seem.
I see. Let us turn our attention to Inspector Gregson's precis of the case heard by the court this morning. A glaring omission of the third bullet in your report is a serious blunder, Inspector. Yes, I can only apologize, my lord. And although the defense's chemical analysis of the blood at the scene makes for a compelling argument, I cannot permit such untried methods to be used as evidence in my courtroom.
It's a big mistake to cross Hurley and me. It's a very big mistake.
My lord, the subpoenaed witness has just arrived in the building. Thank you, officer. Show him to the stand without delay.
Mr. Egbert Benedict, I didn't expect to be crossing paths with him again so soon. And certainly not like this.
Thank you for complying with the court's subpoena at such short notice, sir. But of course, my lord, as an upstanding member of London society, it is my pleasure to oblige. Now, kindly state your name and occupation for the record. Ashley Graydon, Communications Officer.
Mr. Graydon and I both work at London Central Communications Station.
Now, perhaps someone would kindly explain what all this is about.
You were apprised of the situation by the court officer on your way here, I presume.
Yes, I was. Something to do with a murder that took place at a pawnbroker on Baker Street. And some nonsense about me having been there on the night in question.
That is the accusation, indeed.
This really is beyond a joke, you know.
Yeah, I think I've changed his voice from whatever it was when I first started, but I can't remember what I did the first time, what voice I did the first time he showed up, so we're just going to do this very stuck-up drawl.
Very well. Without further delay, the court will hear your testimony now, Mr. Graydon.
Ashley Graydon. I still don't have that other picture in the court record. Why not?
Who will respond to the accusations made against you under oath? Gladly, my lord, gladly.
Here we go.
Naturally, I have occasion to make use of pawnbroking services from time to time. But are you seriously suggesting I colluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder? I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation, even if parties here present claim that my blood was found at the scene. Some Scarmount detective's homebrewed tincture can hardly be taken as serious evidence. So you deny the accusation completely, do you? I must say, I'm dismayed. For the highest court in the land to be swayed by this self-professed detective's toy. It was the will of the jury, and our great British justice system demands that the jury's will is upheld. It would seem we have the misfortune of a most inept assembly of jurors today. By golly. How long am I expected to be detained here? If, following the defense's cross-examination, your involvement in this matter has not been established, you will be free to leave immediately. Good. Then I should be away in time for afternoon tea. Some small consolation, at least. Let us not hold up Mr. Graydon any longer than necessary, counsel. Proceed with the cross-examination.
So, we meet again, Mr. Eggert Benedict. Or is it Mr. Graydon?
My apologies, you are...
Ryunosuke Naruhodo, defense lawyer. We have met.
If you say so, Ashley Graydon, enchanté. So... I trust we can conclude this quickly.
But I'm not holding your flashy hat while we do... No, hang on, I want to examine it. Let me examine the hat. He handed it to us. We should be allowed to. I think we'll just press all the way down the line. I'm guessing that the one that's relevant is going to be this one.
Hold it!
Yes, we even met in the very pawnbrokery where the crime took place, on the afternoon of the day in question. Though, of course, you introduced yourself by a different name at the time. It was Mr. Eggert Benedict, I believe. Tell me, what made you... The witness is here to testify about events that took place that night. He is under no obligation to answer such unrelated questions. You can't be serious.
Thank you, because I certainly do not feel inclined to answer such an inappropriate question.
So he's going to be evasive, is he? This could be tricky.
Hold it!
Have you seen these two men before?
This pair? No, I don't associate with criminals.
Said by a man who introduced himself as Eggert Benedict.
I'd like to know who I have to thank for this. Who made this outlandish accusation against me? The young lawyer there in the black. This is a farce. Whose idea was it to permit an outsider to work in a British court anyway?
You know, surprisingly, that is less racist than a lot of the things that have been said here.
Well, needless to say, I have no intention.
Hold it!
Where were you at around 1 in the morning on the night in question, sir?
That is past the hour at which I would normally retire. Certainly. I was not in the company of these rapscallions.
You're able to prove that?
Objection!
Listen carefully, my learned Nipponese friend, for you appear to be under a gross misapprehension on this point. What do you mean? The witness maintains he was not at the scene of the crime. He has no obligation to prove his absence. If your accusation is that the witness was present at the scene, the obligation lies with you to prove your assertion. You will fulfill that obligation before putting any more unreasonable questions to the witness. Oh my gosh, I hate the movements they animated onto him. A silent victory wiggle, thanks.
Hold it!
See, this is the relevant thing. Blood was found at the scene of the crime, there's no question of that. Mr. Sholm's chemical analysis has positively identified the substance as such.
But I'm not the only human to have blood running through my veins, am I? How can you be sure that the blood is mine? It could equally be the blood of one of these two miscreants.
Every individual's blood has a slightly different composition, it seems. Mr. Sholmes' chemical is able to differentiate blood samples by...
Spare me a science lesson. Who is this Sholmes character anyway?
Oh, I assume that all Londoners would know the name. He's a renowned detective.
So, even you are unable to bring yourself to say great detective. A great detective, you're saying? Now we're in the realm of fairy tales, are we?
That's an odd thing to be able to pursue.
Excuse me!
You have something to say about that, Mr. Skulkin.
What, me?
No, the other Mr. Skulkin next to you.
Well, I've had it up to here with this. How many times?
Yes, I know. You're not Big Bruv Sulky. Mr. Nash Skulkin.
God blimey, Governor. You what?
Is it not the case that when Mr. Graydon just spoke, a thought went through your mind? Would you care to share that thought with the court?
Me thoughts? I don't have none of them. It must have been him. You what?
Mr. Nash Skulkin, answer the question, please. What went through your mind when Mr. Graydon just spoke?
Nothing. Honest, Gov. Nothing. I was just thinking. If he waves his arm around like that much more, it'll open up the wound again, that's all.
What wound?
Well, he took the bullet, of course. It was only 2 days ago. It ain't gonna be healed up yet. So I was, I was worrying for him, and... Oh, hell's bells.
Mr. Graydon, did you hear that?
What?
Your comrade is worried about you, it seems. On account of your injured arm.
My lord. Yes, Mr. Graydon? I have no idea what these two wretches are talking about. Certainly I shouldn't be expected to answer anything in relation to their mindless insinuations.
We know that someone other than the victim was hit by a bullet at the scene of the crime 2 nights ago. And from the height of the bullet hole in the wall, that person was likely hit in the upper arm or thereabouts. Perhaps you'd allow a court official to examine your arm, sir? The left arm that you're currently clasping with your right hand, as if in pain.
No, I refuse. You have shown no evidence whatsoever that links me to these common thieves. Accordingly, I am not obliged to permit any such invasion of my privacy. As I've already said, I'm completely uninvolved in this. I've never had anything to do with the pawnbrokery where this fellow was killed whatsoever. I take offense at the insinuation that I was in any way involved. You claim to have nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Windibank's pawnbroker, eh?
My lord, the defense would like that last statement to be added to Mr. Graydon's formal testimony.
Very well, counsel.
I'm pretty sure I just have to press on it, because I don't have the picture that shows him there.
Continue with your testimony, Mr. Graydon.
Never had anything to do with the pawnbroking establishment where the man was killed.
Hold it!
Never had anything to do with it. You forget that I was there, Mr. Graydon, on the very afternoon of the incident.
Obviously, I'm not a complete stranger to the pawnbrokers. I'm currently on the lookout for an armchair to furnish my store.
Objection!
No, you were there to redeem an article.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Excuse me!
There we go. Do you have something to add, Inspector?
Come again, sunshine? Come again, sunshine?
You were there too, in fact, weren't you, Inspector? That afternoon?
Well, yes, I do remember meeting yourself in the pawnbrokers that afternoon. You, your young Japanese assistant, and the accused were all prisoners, I recall.
And at that time, this witness, Mr. Graydon, was trying to acquire a particular article.
Well now. I'm afraid I don't remember too clearly.
What? But you must.
I'm not going to lie and pretend I remember something I don't.
What's going on here? Rexy showed us a picture before, didn't he? You know, from the cameras that Hurley installed in Windibanks. Yes, of course.
Indeed, and the gentleman pictured bears a striking... Indeed. And the gentleman pictured bears a striking resemblance to the witness, I must say.
Exactly, which proves that Mr. Graydon was in the shop on the afternoon in question.
At no point have I denied that fact. I merely entered the shop to peruse the articles on sale and have a word with the broker, nothing more.
This makes no sense. I understand why Mr. Graydon might be trying to cover his tracks. But why would Gregson be trying to avoid giving testimony about what happened? I'm guessing I have to present the music box disc. That's all he's going to say on the matter, is it? What do you think, Runa? I think he has no intention of telling us anything. He's well aware that the less he says, the less chance he has of giving himself away. The complete opposite of Hurley, then. He seems to think that the more he says, the better. Well, at least I managed to prise a little more information from these witnesses' lips. All thanks to the Skulkin brothers. Yes, they were the key to it, after all. So he says he had nothing to do with Windibanks. Well, we know that's not true. Perhaps now would be a good time to have a proper look through the court record. You never know what tiny scrap of information could become a valuable weapon. So obviously we're going to be presenting something on this particular detail. Why do we still not have that picture submitted as evidence? I want to examine it using the stereoscope and the other photographs. I'm just going to try presenting this. This is the one that makes the most sense to me. The proof that he had something that he specifically went to the pawnbrokery for.
Objection!
Have you ever seen this disc before, Mr. Graydon?
Why? Is it supposed to mean something?
This disc was, until the day of his murder, in Mr. Windibank's shop. It was redeemed by the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, that afternoon. However, somebody mysteriously appeared to try to take it from her. And that somebody was you, of course. Wasn't it, Mr. Graydon?
As I have reiterated numerous times by now, you are mistaken. That was not me. I've never seen that disc before in my life.
It may have escaped your notice, but there's a small smear of blood on the disc.
Ah, yes, resulting from an abrasion of the thumb, perhaps.
That's right. The surface of the disc is covered in hundreds of tiny metal bumps. In the skirmish to acquire the disc, the thumb of the person who tried to take it suffered minor lacerations. So, while the disc bears the remnants of that skirmish in the form of this smear of blood, the thumb of the person in question must bear the remnants also, in the form of a scratch.
Good gracious, indeed it must.
Mr. Graydon, you refused to allow a court officer to examine your arm before. Are you now going to refuse to allow us to examine your thumb? Because I have no doubt that it bears a small scratch consistent with the smear of blood on this disc.
Well, well. It would seem I underestimated you. What is the meaning of this?
So you admit it now. You admit you have a scratch on your thumb from when you attempted to take the disc from the defendant. Other way around, from when the defendant attempted to take the disc from him. Let's not get this backwards here.
Order, order. Well, Mr. Graydon, it would appear there has been something of a misunderstanding here. I did not attempt to take the disc, as you put it. No, quite the reverse.
What are you trying to say?
It's really quite simple, you see. The disc was mine from the outset. Is there some crime in taking an item that you own out of pawn?
What? It would seem, Mr. Graydon, that in this piece of evidence my learned friend has established a link between yourself and the incident. Accordingly, you will tell the court everything you know about this disc now.
As you wish. I'm sure it has nothing to do whatsoever to do with the pawnbroker's murder.
The disc.
There's a note on the disc saying for McGilded, but the item belongs to me. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling on the day in question. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night. Did I hear you correctly, sir? McGilded, you say, the famous London philanthropist, who perished in this very courtroom 2 months ago after being acquitted of a distinctly messy murder. Yes, my lord, the one in the same. Good lord, Mr. Graydon, are you saying that McGilded and yourself were acquainted? Yes, that is correct. Oh, well, I certainly didn't expect to hear that name uttered here in my courtroom again.
The judges and Graydon's voices are getting crossed now. According to what Gina told us, this disc was placed in pawn on that fateful night 2 months ago. McGilded himself gave instructions to deposit it at Windibanks. It's funny that Mr. Graydon here is claiming the disc belongs to him then, isn't it? In all likelihood, he's lying. So he appeared that afternoon at Windibanks in order to get his hands on McGilded's disc for some reason.
Counsel, you will commence your cross-examination, please.
So I have a couple of thoughts about how this might go. So first of all, we're going to hear his claim about why the item belongs to him. Then, we're going to listen to his claim about the ticket. And I imagine that at some point in the process it's going to come up that he knows absolutely nothing about the blood on the ticket. Because that seems like the critical point here. At some point in the process we're going to encounter the evidence that's relevant to this. Would you care to explain how this belongs to you?
As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir. So you see, I have little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties, having misplaced my purse while on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question.
You claim that was your overcoat?
Obviously, and in my haste I clean forgot that the music box disc was in its pocket.
And yet, there is a note on it that reads, for McGilded.
I'm a collector of rare and unusual music box music. I first met McGilded at a gentleman's club in the city, and was interested to discover that he shared my penchant in that area.
So, I have to wonder, at this period in British history, was gentleman's club a term for a strip club? Like, was that always how that phrase was used, or is that a more recent development? Because I know if someone says a gentleman's club nowadays, that means a strip club. Like, it has no bearing whatsoever on the case. I'm just trying to figure out if that is being implied here.
So, the disc in question. It's a pre-production sample. I promised to let Mr. McGilded hear it.
But then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn.
Yes, exactly.
Gina didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she? No, because McGilded had threatened her to keep her mouth shut. Which means that if we dig too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury. Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it?
Hold it!
So you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag?
That's right. Despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious areas of kind.
Objection!
Miss Lestrade did... No, hang on. Let's let the dude keep talking, please.
Well, of course you would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender.
You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her. That's what brought you to Windibanks. To get your hands on McGilded's disc. My learned friend is a veritable font of nonsense. Nonsense?
I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear?
Yes, my lord.
Then I will continue my testimony for what possible use it can be.
Hold it!
Had you ever been to Windibanks before?
Only once for the purposes of pawning something, but like many I enjoy browsing such establishments.
So when you noticed that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, so such is the art of a pickpurse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbrokery at once, in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place.
Say what he likes because he knows we have no evidence to contradict him on this.
Hold it!
Yes, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it?
That's right. This was the very man. Apparently, the police are collecting anything that has a connection to Mr. McGilded as evidence.
Excuse me!
Something wrong, Inspector?
What do you mean?
Last remark Mr. Graydon made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way.
No, it didn't. It's nothing. Leave it alone.
Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering Mr. McGilded's possessions?
I can't tell you something like that, Sunshine.
What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets?
Yes, exactly. You should all know about that.
Magnus McGilded, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago. A man renowned throughout the capital for his great contributions to public life. Yet he had a dark side too.
Where are you going with this, Van Zix?
I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of his nefarious activities, are they?
That's enough. Coppers like me have duties to carry out that we're not at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know.
Duties conferred by Lord Strongheart, I presume. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector.
The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're going to need Lord Strongheart's paw print first.
What's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord Van Zeeks here.
Well, it would appear that the inspector has revealed all he is at liberty to reveal. Mr. Graydon, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord. Gladly, my lord.
Jeez, I cannot for the life of me remember what voice I've given him 2 seconds running.
Hold it!
Last thing to press on. But perhaps you'd seen something of value among the forfeited items?
No, not at all.
A valuer was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was common or garden bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilded's disc.
Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. It was no more in the shop that night than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in.
There was nothing of McGilded's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. I don't know if you... Okay, it's that. I get it. Oh, I suppose I should have read her thing. Bruno, if you have some evidence, then let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritatingly assured expression of his crumble. McGilded slipped the disc into his coat pocket and had it deposited at Windibank's. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption ticket. There's no doubt about it. That witness is lying through his pearly white teeth. The police were obviously after anything left behind by McGilded as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day. But Gregsy's being very strange about all this. There's be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, I need to focus on exposing the fact that Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony. Alright. Would y'all like to see what we need to present now? If you recall, in the court record, there are 2 tickets. The one for the coat, which was brought in that day, and the one for the box that was brought in, that was in the pocket of the coat.
Objection!
That second thing shows that Mr. McGilded had pawned another item, which gives him a reason to have wanted to get there in order to get other said item. More importantly, it's a reason for the police to open up about what they know, given if they want to find this other item, they're going to need to cooperate. This disc was deposited at Mr. Windibank's on Magnus McGilded's instructions. You knew that, and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself. Conjecture again, and in any case, the disc was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night.
Objection!
Sorry, my learned friend, but that's not true. But Mr. McGilded had another article in pawn at Windibank's, as this second pawnbroker's ticket proves. There were 2 articles belonging to Mr. McGilded in Windibank's pawnbrokery, and the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one, together with your 2 accomplices, the Skulkin brothers.
This is the second ticket, is it?
What had the man deposited? The article description reads 1 small box.
A rather vague description, it seems to me. Are you suggesting that I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box?
I believe there are adequate grounds to suspect that you did.
This is absurd. Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There would be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. a good point. Indeed. The witness makes a solid argument.
So that means that for some reason, Scraden fellow needed the small box that very night, doesn't it?
Objection!
It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord.
Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Van Zix?
I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Windibank's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it.
What? Good gracious.
Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court, if you please.
Yes, sir.
What prints?
These prints were taken from one of the detective security cameras.
Ah, are these red-handed recorders again? As previously explained, using this plan of the shop layout. The victim's establishment was furnished with 2 automatic cameras in 2 locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Rindebank received his customers, and the other was set to capture the shelves on which articles were placed for sale once forfeited.
According to the information on this ticket, the killer's small box had been forfeited already, 2 days before the incident at 9 p.m. on the 13th to be precise, which means it would have been on the shelves of the forfeited items in the shop front. Now what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. That's at 11 p.m. on 15th April. The victim certainly had a very full shop, it would appear. And then here we have another print. This one was taken about 2 hours after the incident. I see, so we have 2 pictures to compare. Now I must say that placing them side by side leaves me cold. Dear me, that's starting to make my head ache. Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we considered theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life. So your men have already compared these 2 prints thoroughly, Inspector? Yes, sir. We counted every single item in each of these 2 photographic prints.
And this is where the stereoscope is going to come in.
And the R's conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both.
In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question, and my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy. I don't believe it. If I could have just shown that he'd stolen McGilded's pawned box, I might have been able to break him down at last. You know what, Runo? I've been thinking. I wonder if these 2 photographs really are exactly the same. What?
So, counsel, in light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? Seems that in fact, on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion?
Why is it so hard to get these things actually added to the court record where I can mess with them? I don't know. Could there be some hidden discrepancy between these 2 photographic prints? Somewhere. So I believe now is when we present the stereoscope. There's no discrepancy, point out a discrepancy, or use a piece of evidence. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something, if I may.
Try something? Try something? What do you mean, Counsel?
I'll need to use a certain piece of evidence from the court record to identify the discrepancy.
I'm not entirely sure that I follow. Which piece of evidence do you intend to use to help you identify a discrepancy between the two prints?
Take that!
I'd like to use this device, my lord, to view the two prints stereoscopically. Oh, yes, you've caught the bug at last. You can't resist it, can you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion. Juror number 3, what a surprise. Come on, Runo. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. What is going to stand out? There we go. Now look through the eyepiece. There we go. Wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these two prints.
What? You must identify the location in question for the court, Counsel. Indicate the precise location of the discrepancy of which you speak.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. I would love to see the two pictures again, though. Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them.
What?
Oh, the box moved. When you view the two pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different, the location of this small box.
Let me... wait. Unbelievable. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary.
What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilded's small box was indeed not stolen from Windibanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves.
Are you suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilded is in fact...
Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those
Objection!
prints.
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf. Nothing was stolen. Which means, quite simply, that nothing has changed.
That may be true, but... Alright, Mr. McGilded's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact it was moved like that change things? It changes everything. I believe this changes everything about the case.
How can that possibly be?
The crucial point is the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside the box.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windibanks as we speak.
Objection!
That won't be necessary. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Van Zeeks. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination.
So I have a feeling that about something that's going to come up. And I'm waiting to show y'all what my feeling is in the court record.
We should have a report within half an hour.
Okay, so Here's the thing. The loan amount for the box was 10 shillings. That seems like a lot for what seems to be a fairly ordinary small box. Which means there had to be something inside it to make it worth. To make it worth that sum. Obviously, it doesn't keep up with 1 pound of the coat, but
we should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth.
to be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing.
I beg your pardon, Lord Van Zix.
This is nothing but a smokescreen, a Nipponi specialty, it would seem. What are you trying to say? My learned friend has persisted with the same line of questioning from the beginning, that this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilded from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place.
Exactly. It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property.
If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilded perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society his reputation implied, in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense.
The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets, and a small box.
Didn't you claim earlier that you were the one who pawned that?
I assure you, I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. You know, that does make rather a lot of sense.
It's not as if it was gold or jewels, is it? Though goodness knows McGilded was rich enough.
The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling.
It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by this fine fine citizen could have.
Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that the disc or the box are in any tangible way related to this case?
Well, What's the matter, Runa? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Yes, of course, you and I both know that. We know McGilded's true character, and we know the disc is significant even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGilded's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. That the defense's argument was flawed, based on false information. Oh no. And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. But Ginny, could it be that Van Zieks knows? Is that why he's doing this now? Because he anticipated everything? But maybe this could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry, what do you mean, Iris? Well, what is it that you always say, Runa? Sooner or later, the truth comes out, every time. Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGilded deposited with Mr. Windibank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. If I put her on the stand to testify about that, that could critically damage our chances of winning this case. Trust Gina. What's the right thing to do here? Have Gina testify. My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal.
What proposals, counsel?
While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGilded's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand.
The defendant? To what end? To what end?
It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windibanks by Mr. McGilded, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question once and for all. Well, things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing. In particular, the impact it will have on the accused standing, and indeed your own. I have.
Lord Van Zieks, would you care to explain that last remark?
The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself.
Very well, if you have no objection. So the court will now hear testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Then I shall bid you good day.
Well, you, sir, shall remain in the stand while Miss Lestrade testifies.
As you wish.
All right then, Gina, it's time. I know this will be hard, but please, put your faith in me here. Good luck, Bruno. And you know what? That is probably the place to call it. I'll drop a save right here, but we might go through the first few lines until it shows the start of testimony header. The articles that Mr. McGilded had deposited in Windibank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in this courtroom 2 months ago.
Yes, and I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well.
That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGilded. The omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least. And now, here we all are again. The same players in that trial, facing each other once more. Of course, we have a different high criminal in the stand with Miss Lestrade. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Nipponese friend. Yeah, no, I think we're going to want to start up again next time from here. I don't know how much backtracking we want to do or how long it's going to take to get to the start of the testimony, but this seems like a surprisingly decent place to stop. So I think we will call it there for the night. A bit of a short stream. It's only been about 2 hours. A little over, but I think I don't think we'll hit a better time to stop. And I think this will cut things off at a pretty reasonable point. So yeah, thanks for being here. Yep, we'll pick it up tomorrow, B. I stretched. I didn't yawn. I make noises when I stretch. It's because I'm elderly. Anyway, thanks for being here, everyone. This case is heating up. I just wish that they would actually contribute those things to the court. I'm sorry, this isn't a video yet. It won't be until I stop the recording and let it remux. So yeah, anyway, we'll pick this up tomorrow night, same time as usual. I do appreciate y'all being here. It's been pretty dang interesting. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Later, folks. Bye.